Au. Asatoma satgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityurma angritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hmm. Hmm. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, welcome to the circle today, to our Sangha. Thank you for being here to hold space for one another and to hold space for this planet that we are on. Today, I want to speak a little bit about healing ourselves and collective consciousness. And it's a tricky subject because it requires us moving outside our normal boundaries and understanding of how we are part of the whole and what it is that we can contribute to the whole. But I think it's an important topic for us, given the state of the world. And we are a functioning Sangha that is working towards the wholeness in ourselves and in our family together. And this can be expressed into the world in different ways. So I want to speak to that this morning. It's just true that until we acknowledge that we're part of the whole, and that when we pain others, we pain ourselves, until we acknowledge that, the collective unconscious will prevail. So we have, while we may be in recognition of that, until there's sort of a tipping point, until there are enough souls and spirits on this planet who choose consciousness, we won't be able to move beyond what is expressing itself in the unconscious collective. So we choose consciousness, but we have to pull in all of the loose souls who aren't choosing consciousness. It's like centrifugal force. If we can spin ourselves strongly enough, we will pull in those who are just on the fringe. And when there are enough of us who are choosing consciousness as our life mission, as our life state, then the unconscious collective will not be able to continue. And there'll be a healing that happens on our planet, in our humanity. So we have to be conscious and look at how it is that we bifurcate or separate ourselves into pieces instead of staying whole. If our aim is to contribute to the whole, being whole, then we have to really look at ourselves and say, where am I not being whole? Where am I not integrating myself as deeply as I can? So, and one example that I want to use of how our body, we can just talk about our body. Our body is a microcosm of the macrocosm of the entire universe. So for instance, if we go for a walk, we can't just take our legs and leave the rest of our body sitting at home. We are so intricately intertwined in our body, one piece to the other, that when we move, all parts of us move. We know that, that's pretty simple, but it's an illustration of the importance of us recognizing the absolute of us being intertwined, because we can find ways. The body, it's more difficult to bifurcate because it's an entity, but the mind and the spirit, it's not so difficult to bifurcate that from the body and have these separate parts of us. So we have to find ways to keep ourselves woven together in this cord of consciousness so that the strength of us comes through. So for instance, we can't just poison one part of our body without affecting every other part of it to some degree. I mean, chemotherapy is a wonderful, and other allopathic medicines is a wonderful expression of that. We can kill one thing in our body, but other parts of our body also get impacted. There's no possible way for us to separate out the whole. We understand in Ayurveda that what we ingest through our five senses becomes an integral part of our internal landscape. So what we're bringing in thought and in what we're seeing visually becomes our thought process. What we're bringing in something that affects our heart becomes part of our heart process. We can't separate out our five senses. They come in however they come in, and they impact what it is that we're sitting with as the whole of ourselves. So the question is, how about our mental and our heart space? And one of the ways that this is important right now in the world as the state that it's in is, let's use forgiveness as an example. How can we truly forgive some and not others? If we bifurcate forgiveness in a way that some people are worthy of our forgiveness and some are not, is it still forgiveness? Are we still actually using forgiveness in the fullness of what forgiveness means, what is taught through all of our traditions and through all of the spiritual books and the leaders and the teachers who have honored forgiveness in the way that they work into the world? Do they bifurcate and say, I forgive one group but not another, or one person or not another, or one action and not another? Is it still forgiveness? We have to ask ourselves that. Can we step into forgiveness as a whole, even when the action is not something that we're aligned with? Spiritually, we have to come to understand that nothing is real if it can be divided or diminished. Everything that's eternal and real cannot be divided. It's intact in and of itself. So for forgiveness, we're either on it or off of it. We're not half on. We're not on it when it works for us emotionally or mentally or in our world where we go, yes, I can forgive that action or that person. I've come to some, in my mind, I figured out how to do that and I can forgive that. But over here, I won't forgive that. Are we really forgiving? Have we really entered into the place where we are embracing forgiveness with all of its pain? And I'm not talking about condoning behavior that's unacceptable, but I'm talking about the practice of forgiveness. We can't selectively forgive some things and not others and truly be into forgiveness, into the act of forgiveness as a spiritual being. If we dance around the edges of it, we're playing with the pieces of forgiveness. We're not playing with the whole of forgiveness. And in this way, we are actually contributing to the unconsciousness of forgiveness. In other words, we are contributing to unconscious collective around forgiveness. So we think we're not, because we forgive quite gracefully, and in most places we do. And so we're able to convince ourselves through our mind construct that we're a forgiving individual. We can look at someone like the Dalai Lama as an example of this, who has had very good reason over his lifetime to not embrace or forgive what has happened in Tibet and in his homeland. And yet what he teaches is forgiveness, irrespective of how it's coming to you, who it's coming from. Whatever is disruptive and unpleasant doesn't change the act of forgiveness. This also goes for all of the heart-centered states of being, like love, compassion, generosity. If we're generous of heart, are we generous of heart only to certain people in certain ways? Or are we generous in all ways? That looks different, of course, to every person that we're working with, but generosity becomes, you don't have love for someone, you become love. And when you become love, you can't be love on and off. You can't be yourself sometimes and not yourself others. Once you become generous, once you become compassion, once you become love and you become forgiveness, there's no on or off, you just are. And then the details of that is where activism and where our support into the world comes in. We can be forgiveness and still be active about changing a situation outside of us that is not healthy, is not in the way that we want to see the world. We don't simply say, because I'm forgiveness, I don't have to do anything else. No, we're activists in life. That's what we are. We are catalysts for other people being able to live into this space also. So when we forgive, that's the first step, is our forgiveness or our love, our compassion, our generosity. Then we have to take it a step further. And we have to say, while I'm that, I still have a voice. I'm not abdicating an opinion or an understanding or a guidance that I want to offer into the world about a particular situation or a particular person. But can I do that truly through the lens of choosing to only have love or compassion or forgiveness for certain people and in certain ways? It's a course in miracle teaching. You either everything, and almost every spiritual, I would say every spiritual teacher I've studied, you're either everything is love or nothing's love. There's not an in between. It's so convenient for us to decide that some things work well and we can love that and other things just don't. If we step into becoming love, then we can operate out of that paradigm and we can make shifts from that, because that will help shift the consciousness of the collective. And when that starts to shift, then some of the things that we're seeing in behaviors and in actions in the world start to shift. But if we go in with, I don't love this, and so I'm going to push this away, then we're just contributing to the problem. We're not actually coming in with a new paradigm. So how do we manage this in this world of nuances? We live in a world where if we intellectually dissect something, it's very easy to say why this would be forgiven. I can forgive this and this I can't, because this was out of, we can make a decision, a judgment that this action was made out of whatever it was made out of. And I'm not in alignment with that. Therefore, I don't have to agree to that. We're not becoming something, we're acting it. And as long as we act it and we bifurcate it into when it works for us and when it doesn't, then we don't hold the full potential of being love, of being forgiveness. There's such power in us being that versus us doing that. And from the seat of being, then we will act differently. We will be into the world in a different way, and that will impact the whole. So for us to take a practice of recognizing where in our life we are not able to live into being love, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, the key heart spaces that we want to become, then how do we deal with that? How do we language that? One of the ways that we need to be aware of it first, we have to notice that we are stepping into a place of maybe self-serving love, forgiveness, compassion. When it works for us, that's when we have it. But when it doesn't work, then we don't. So if we acknowledge that, then we can say, then that's not really love or forgiveness or compassion. It's something else. It's not bad. The fact that I step into a situation and I offer what I can, it just can't be fullness of that. It's a step. But why don't we use different language? If I'm not really forgiving everything, but I'm forgiving one thing, maybe what I'm really doing is accepting or acknowledging, but I'm not really forgiving. Forgiving holds a kernel that's deeper than just acceptance. It's something else. It's beyond. Love is not just liking something and adoring something or finding something really sweet and tenable. It's something beyond. You know, the qualities of love and compassion and forgiveness have an edge to them that is not in our language. It's in a feeling, it's in a gut. It's a deeper, more profound state of being. So if we understand in language, I'm working towards that. I may not have arrived there yet. That's my journey. That's okay. But if we don't acknowledge that we have not yet arrived there, then we operate out of an ego that we think we have. Well, I'm pretty forgiving. I'm not forgiving of that because look how they behaved. I mean, that's not forgiving. You can't forgive that. So we're not really in that space. We use that space when it's convenient for us. But until we can step into the fullness of becoming those aspects of our spiritual journey and still taking action where it's needed, we haven't fully arrived. So our job, our aim, our work is still to keep working towards us becoming all of those qualities. So when we walk through the world, we express it in, in spoken and unspoken ways so that it becomes the tipping point for collective consciousness, so that the unconscious in our collective can't help but be pulled into the centrifugal force that we are a part of, that is pulling them into that knowingness or into that, so that even if they're not choosing it, it's like a wave, they're part of the wave. And we can start having an impact or continue to have an impact on collective healthy consciousness. But first we have to be really conscious and honest with ourselves. Am I fully becoming of these attributes, or do I need to keep working on that? I don't know. We're probably all working on many of those aspects, maybe all of them. It's a journey. But if we're not aware and conscious of the journey, we can't shift and step into the beingness. We'll just use it as an action when it works for us, when we can intellectually and emotionally agree with it. And when we can't, we just change our path. But love doesn't have those two paths. Compassion doesn't have those two paths. It has one path. So let's call it what it is, and let's step into, in our own awareness, day by day, little steps, so that we become those qualities in the world, and we become a light for that truth in the world. And then we can be a participant in shifting what's happening in our world. Let's go there, ladies. We're on the path. Let's keep going. Let's not stop now. Let's keep going. Let's go until we become those things in ways that we are visible and invisible both. And I'm sure Siddhi has something beautiful to say about this also.
Yeah, I think it's always there are so many acts that are really terrible and inhumane. So I think we really have to learn to distinguish, like you said, and I think that's the art of being a witness, is that you never justify or embrace what happened, but you embrace the person who did it. And I think that's really the art for me for forgiveness, because, things happened to me in my life which were horrific. But if I have compassion and the sense of forgiving, then I can forgive the person. That does not mean I will forget the act. And I think that's really, sometimes a hard thing, because we see the act and the person as one. And I think that's where we collapse, and where the witnessing is not present. And whatever you said really requires witnessing, creating this consciousness and the constant awareness of our own body and mind alignment, if it's there or not. And that's work. It's work, and it's getting better, but it's work, and we trip and we fall and we come back up, So I thought this morning, because Nimala and I spoke last night, and I thought there's a beautiful meditation that really works on the witnessing, being the witness of our body-mind alignment. But then where you were speaking, I think maybe for the first few minutes, we just shake everything off, because we were sitting the whole time. So I want you just for the first few minutes, and then I explain the meditation, just to really shake your body, shake your fingers, as if you want to get rid of your hands. Yeah, and I want you to exhale through the open mouth. We just do it for 2-3 minutes. We can change ourselves, we can change our thinking, our awareness, our alertness, our consciousness, and create ripple effects for peace, alignment, for humanity. But for that, like Nimala said, it requires a lot. So twist your body a little bit while you're shaking. So if you want to get rid of any things that still are clinging to you, just a little bit more. Because it's hard to sit still when the body is agitated or the mind is agitated. Shake off the news. See how much you want to let in. It will all impact your nervous system, your immune system. It does not mean we want to be ignoring the facts, but we want to be responsible. So it's better to read it than to watch the pictures. It's easier for your brain. Okay, let's come sitting. So the meditation has a few stages. It's called the Nada Brahma, and I will cut it short because normally it's an hour meditation. So we'll cut it a little. In the first one, you just sit with your hands, palms really relaxed on your knees or thighs. And you just start humming like, and you go on, but you want to hum in a way that somebody who would come in really hears you. So that creates a synchronicity between your body and your mind. Then at one point, the music will change. And I would like for you to bring your hands, palms facing up to the center of your heart. And then for 7.5 minutes, actually, you're just moving your palms forward as slow as you can. And then you will bring them around. And you just repeat this movement. But I go fast right now. You will go much slower, yeah? Then the music will change again and you turn your palms down and you go the opposite direction. And you're just being a witness of how it feels to go slow. And then the music will change again and you just sit in silence. So here you give from your heart everything Nirmala shared, the forgiving, to give again, to share, to be generous. Yeah, and then in the third stage, you bring energy back towards yourself. You collect, you bring in, you're willing to receive forgiveness for yourself. And then you just rest. So there's a very specific music for this meditation. So the eyes are closed the entire time. Please close them now. Rest your hands onto your knees and hum from your heart. It's time to bring our hands into prayer pose. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. For those who want to continue sitting in silence, it would be great if you just could keep your eyes closed, hands on your knees, and just be. And we will see you next Saturday.